Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought what we'll do is have a look at the premium vehicles that are on sale in the Moments of Valor for France. There is a ground vehicle bundle, a air bundle, and then also some vehicles which are back for GE. So we'll go through all of them in this video and basically give my general opinions on them. Now, before we start, if you do want to pick up any of these bundles, I'll leave some links in the description and also in a pinned comment. These are partnered links, which basically means if you want to purchase the bundles, if you do it through those, you can support the channel and then also get this decal right here with them, which is quite nice. The other thing to also mention before getting any of these bundles is a lot of these vehicles are GE vehicles. So you can either buy them as bundles, get the camouflages for free, with them, or what you can do is you can purchase them for GE, and then also at the same time you can purchase the camos for GE, such as this one, which is the Lamarck one on the AMX 13M24. Now, the interesting thing about them being for GE is, well, at least all the ground vehicle ones are for GE. You can actually just wait until the 50% sale and they'll all be half off anyway. And the 50% sale for G is usually in November to mark the anniversary of War Thunder. So if you want to pick up any of the ground vehicles individually, that's basically where you can do it, since all of these are all GE vehicles. When it comes to planes, it's slightly different. The Narval is a GE vehicle. That one is available right now, so that one will be 50% off probably in November. The Mirage F1C obviously isn't, and then obviously the two returning vehicles aren't either, since they are only here until tomorrow. So if you have FOMO, I suppose you could pick them up, but I wouldn't really recommend that, so not really worth it. Anyway, in this video, we'll go through all the vehicles, my general thoughts on them, and what's kind of worth it, what's kind of not. But my general opinion, especially with the kind of ground vehicles, is since they're all GE vehicles, it's worth just waiting for a GE sale and then just picking them up through there. That's normally a better idea. So let's get started. We have the AMX 13M24. This is an AMX 13 chassis, with a chaffee turret on top of it. Now, this one is actually really fun. I've had a great time with it, and they also buffed it quite aggressively over the last period of time because they finally gave it its vertical gun stabilizer, which means that it basically has a short stop stabilizer on it, so you can get shots off quicker than most people who are trying to slow down. It also has access to a 50 cal, which is super good against other light vehicles and planes, and also, since it's a light tank, it gets access to scouting. It also gets something which is really cool, which is these smoke grenades. It gets 14 of them, and they basically fire in individual hits, so you can actually reposition really well with a vehicle like this and just generally do really good. Since it's the 75mm from America, you get the M61 shot, which has very good penetration, and also when you penetrate, you have very good damage as well. It's kind of the standard shell for the 75 that everybody kind of wants, and the vehicle itself just feels really nice. It's got good gun depression, it's got good gun handling. The only thing that's a little bit of a letdown is it doesn't have the best reverse speed, but if you have a look at a lot of vehicles around this BR, they don't have good reverse speeds either. Also, I suppose against CAS, it doesn't have a lot of armor on the kind of chassis of it, and then also the top of the turret, so that can be kind of annoying. But the major way you play this is as a first spawn, and then as a first spawn, to give your team kind of like the advantage, get a lot of scouts off, get the 75 going, and then just having a good time with it. The other thing is at 3.7, you just have like a really good lineup. You have the ARL 44 ACR1, which is quite fun, but you also have the M4A4, which is a stable, great vehicle. And then also you can bring along the M10, the other M4, and also you have some AA support as well with it. You also have the LVT 440, which is kind of a funny vehicle. That was one of the Battle Pass ones back in the day. But yeah, so if you're worried about it being a rank 2 vehicle, meaning you can't do a lot of the dailies with it, a lot of the specials with it, well, since you have these rank 3 vehicles that you can bring it along with, that kind of fixes that, right? Like, you don't have to worry about it. You also have the 3.7 SB2C and also the Firefly, which you can bring along with them too, basically meaning that you have a full rank 3 lineup so you can do all of your dailies and specials. So out of all of them, I actually think this one's the best. It's the funnest and the one that I've had the best time with over the years. The next vehicle is the AMX-13 SS11. This is just a standard AMX-13 with the 75mm SA50 with access to SS11s. That's literally all it is. This vehicle was actually the pre-order vehicle, or one of the pre-order vehicles for the French when they came about. And I mean, to be honest, it's kind of an upgrade and a downgrade at the same time for the AMX-13. The standard AMX-13 is really good, which is why pretty much all of them have massively gone up in BR over the times. And this one also has gone up in BR. It used to be 6.7, now it's 7.0. But even though it's 7.0, you have the AMX-13, you have the AMX M4 that you can run with it, and then also you have the AU-F1. So you still have a very good ground kind of area with it. You also have the M46 if you ended up doing the Battle Pass last Legionnaire, which was more recently. So the AMX-13 SS11, the big kind of upgrade it gets is these missiles. Now the missiles themselves, the LFK SS11s, do punch quite hard. They have 600mm worth of pen, 2 kilos of TNT equivalent, which is really nice. But the problem is they are M-close, which basically means they're keyboard guided. So they aren't guided by your mouse, they are guided by your keyboard. And this means that in order to use them, you have to be stationary. So one of the problems that the AMX-13 has is it doesn't have a lot of armor, and it relies on its quick maneuverability to be able to survive. Because if you get shot, you usually die, since you only have a 3-man crew. So when your turret gets hit, you usually die pretty quickly. So if you have a kind of mechanic on it where basically you have to be seeing the enemy, right? Because of the trajectory of the missile, and then they're also wire guided, which means that if you lose line of sight, then you can't guide it anymore, and therefore you have to be exposed to use them, and therefore you die when you use them. So it doesn't really work very well. If you can catch people off guard with them, then that works really good, but most of the time, in most scenarios, it's not going to be great. But as a standard AMX-13 with the 75mm, it's going to work very well. You have a 5-second reload, you have the Peacock 51P, which pens very good. The only vehicles you're going to struggle against is some of the Soviet heavies and some of the German heavies. Everything else you'll be able to pen quite well, and you also have scouting to be able to back you up too. I just think the standard AMX-13 is just a bit easier to use because you don't have this big ammo rack on you, which will actually overpressure you when it gets hit. The other thing is that you may have seen is the missiles are actually angled upwards, so this means that an enemy has to be X amount away from you to be able to actually get hit by them, because you have to arc the missile down as you're going in. Now, it's a lot easier to control these missiles compared to before, where it was very annoying, but generally it's still not great to do. So for me, the AMX-13 SS11, it's fine. I think the M46 Premium is better, but it's just one of those which it's just a bit wonky. And if you know how to use the missiles properly, you'll do good in it. But I think for most people, it's not going to be as good. The AMX-30 is also on sale. Basically, what the AMX-30 is, or at least the premium one, is it's just the standard AMX-30, but it doesn't have the coaxial 20. And that actually makes quite a big difference. It instead only has access to this 50 caliber machine gun. You lose a lot of penetration, you lose a lot of post-pen, and you also lose the ability of really being able to annihilate helicopters or being able to annihilate lighter vehicles, which are kind of running around the place. And at this BR, where you have stuff like the XM800T, and you also have a lot of like AMLs and things like that, that 20mm can be really, really useful. And not having it just kind of sucks. The MX-30 also doesn't have access to APFS-DS or HeatFS. It gets this heat shell, the OCC-105F1, which is actually a really good heat shell, probably one of the best ones in the game. It very much acts like HeatFS, but at the same time, you're still going to run into targets that have a lot of protection against those types of things. So you do have to be a little bit careful in terms of what you do. It has the standard 105 reload. It has very good mobility on it because it has this really good transmission that a lot of people don't know about. Basically, this is the reason why you see these MX-30s rapidly running around the place and having great acceleration and also deceleration. because they're able to use this really effectively. So they can get out and get in to problems really, really quickly, which is great. The other thing is it has this trolley fuel tank. So a lot of kind of Soviet vehicles have a trolley fuel tank in the chassis, which protects the ammo. The AMX-30 has the same thing. It has this weird piece of armor, which can get up to nearly 90 millimeters. And then when you pen that, and then you hit this fuel tank, which is weirdly angled, the round can just get eaten by the fuel tank. So you do have, of course, the first stage ammo storage back here, which usually people fill and don't add any more to it. So basically, this just adds an additional piece of spaced armor, which your rounds will get eaten by and will then do no damage. So that's kind of fun on the vehicle itself. If you have a look at the other AMX-30s that are around, you have the AMX-30 1972, which is the same BR. You also have the DF105, which is a fantastic vehicle. So you also have the Char 25T, which is a fantastic vehicle. So you do have a good lineup for this thing. But once again, it's just a worse version of the AMX-30 1972. So the question for you is, do you want to pay money for a worse version of another vehicle because of its premium status? And if you want to do that, you could just buy the Clovis, which is a better version of the standard Tech Tree vehicle and also has premium bonuses, since this one has the 20mm and at the same time has the laser rangefinder, whereas the DF105 doesn't. I can't believe that this thing is still the same BR as the DF105. It makes absolutely no sense. And with 50% off in November, this one's going to be a much better pick than the AMX-30, which kind of looks dull in comparison. There's not much really to say about the 4050 Vautour IIN. It's a rank 6 vehicle, which means that it's forced to spawn on the airfield in aerialistic. It takes too much time to get up to speed, and also has no way of defending itself, because at speed, its elevator basically just becomes useless. It can't maneuver, and also has no countermeasures. So you are just a sitting duck. It's no good as a vehicle. It does get access to AA nodes if you can actually, head on people and get them on target. But once again, this thing is at 8.3, so you can face stuff like F104s, so good luck with that. And then you also have the bombs, so you can be basically a bomb truck to destroy bases. But once again, you have to take off from the airfield. Good luck actually getting to the base before you get annihilated. You do get some kind of funny mechanics, such as the AS30 nodes and then the AS20 nodes. But one of the problems with these things is, what I just talked about before. When you're at high speeds, which is when you want to use these in a dive attack to be able to hit, the enemies on the ground, guess what? You can't maneuver. So you end up just torpedoing yourself into the ground over and over and over again. There's also platforms that have these types of mechanics, and also similar kind of bomb loads around these BRs in the standard tech tree, which are a little bit easier to use. So for me, I just feel like this vehicle is not a great one to pick up. Like, it doesn't have CCIP anymore, or any internal things. It has, of course, the 30mm, great, wonderful. Once again, you can't maneuver to be able to use them properly. So yeah, I don't know why anybody would purchase this. You have the Milan available as well. I think this is probably a better purchase than the Vautour, but it's still not very good. Like, it's only 30% off as well. Be nice if they brought these back, maybe 50% off. Maybe then they'll be a bit more worth it. So what the Milan is, it's a bomb truck. It's basically got a huge engine on it, the 9K50, which has 6800 kgf. If you have a look at some of the other vehicles in the tech tree, such as the Mirage 3E, this one has the 9C, which has 60 at 110 kgf. So it's kind of similar in that way, apart from this one is just even more powerful than it. So it's basically got like a 10.7 engine on it. It's on a 10.3 platform, which is really nice. It means that you are actually a lot faster than many things that you face at 9.7. And then also it has some pretty good guns. The Defers nowadays do a lot of damage. So why is this machine not really seen a lot? Well, it has no countermeasures, and Gaijin around this BR added a bunch of silly vehicles which have access to very good missiles, which you cannot get away from. So basically, even though this thing is kind of limited in its armament, it was always doomed to fail because of stuff like the A-10, because of stuff like the Su-25, because of stuff like other strike aircraft like the Harriers and the Jaguars and all of these things that all have, quite low BRs with very good missiles. Even stuff like T2s and F1s, for example, which nowadays are basically around the same BR, they are able to torch it too because of the same reasons. So kind of sucks for the Milan. But yeah, this is a bomb truck. So you take the bombs on it, and then what you do is you just hit bases with it, and afterwards then you use the AIM-9Bs to try and slow down people, and then use the guns to kill them, and then eventually you'll die. That's pretty much what you do in this thing. It's a very simple machine to use. There's not really other playstyles that you can do great with it. You do have the AS-30 if you want to have a bit of fun with that. But I think generally the bombs are just better in air or even in ground, by the way, because technically in ground you can use this quite effectively because you do have CCIP, and at 9.7 nowadays in ground you do have at least, some type of vehicles, like you have the Roland, for example, you have the VBCI, you have the CV9035NL, the VBCI2. So you have a lot of ways of easily getting into aircraft, so you can use those 1,000-pounders pretty effectively. But generally, you're not going to have a fantastic time in this thing because you can't really defend yourself. So you have to go on the offensive, and going on the offensive leaves you open to attacks from either side, from silly missiles, and then you just die. And that's basically why the Milan got removed from sale, because people got sick of just over and over and over again getting donked by silly missiles. The Narval is also in sale in one of the packs. This one's kind of an odd one, pretty interesting vehicle. It has the Arsenal 12H02 engine, which has a lot of power, like you can see here how much it's got. It also has a bunch of MG 151s, which basically France scavenged after the war from Germany. They were left in France, I should say, and then they just basically just bolted them to this aircraft, which is pretty fun. But the cool thing about this vehicle is it's classed as an interceptor, which means that it gets an air spawn in air realistic. So you're actually able to get a little bit higher than the enemies and then kind of go from there. The problem with it, though, is at 5.7, there's a lot of other vehicles that spawn in the air too nowadays, especially a bunch of very, very meta strike aircraft, which will just kind of run circles around you. So you got to be very, very careful when actually fighting those things. Also, taking off can be a bit of a problem, but luckily, as I said, you don't really have to do that much in this thing. You can see how close the propeller is to the ground. So if you are taking off in this thing, use your takeoff flaps, so it will lift you up into the air and then kind of lift yourself naturally, because otherwise this contra-rotating propeller will just smash into the ground, or you'll smash your tail into the ground and do some damage to it. But it has a lot of firepower in the front, a lot of 20 millimeters, which is quite nice. The other thing about this is it can actually carry two 1000s. So as a CAS idea, it's not terrible. It can at least do something. But the problem with it is the AD4NA exists, and then also stuff like the F4U7 exists, the other AD4 as well. The Sea Fury is in the house to be able to do a similar role, at least in air, and then also the Spitfire nowadays, which is another one which is a lot easier to use in air and fits the meta a lot better. So this one is kind of quirky. It is kind of interesting to see it and to use it, but I wouldn't say it's meta defining, because once again, it's just a bit of a bucket to turn in the air. And when you have a bucket that turns in the air, and you're mainly facing stuff like, late tier Soviet vehicles, Spitfires, and then also Zeros, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're basically a head-on machine at that point, and that's it. And that kind of sucks. And that means it doesn't really fit very well. But if you haven't ground out, the tech tree for France, and you want a CAS option, it's not a terrible one. I just think that there are better ones, such as the AD4, even though it's slightly higher in BR. The last vehicle that is in the air pack is the Mirage F1C-200. This is kind of the standard grinder that people use for France, mainly because it's the highest tier premium, and then also at the same time, it has some of the easiest mechanics in the world to use. So basically, what you have on this platform is you have a very fast vehicle, right? So you have the ATAR 9K50, This obviously gives it a lot of power, the same power as the Milan, by the way. And then also you have access to the 30mm defers, which is quite nice, as a standard thing. The maneuverability of it is okay. It's not great. It's basically just a bit of a bus, but you do have the engine power to be able to get into good positions. You also have a good amount of countermeasures, a lot more than most that will be around this BR. This thing is 12-0 in air, by the way, and 11-3 in ground, just to let you know. So at 12-0, you face stuff like the F4S, and then also you face all the Hornets, which are in the 12-3, 12-7 area, which are also incredibly strong. So if you get down-tiered, you can do really well in this. If you get up-tiered, you die, and that is the problem with this BR range. So the interesting thing about 12.0 as well is one of the kind of mechanics that really comes into its own is radars. So radars get way more powerful, such as, the F4S radar, the F4J radar, and many other ones, which just get like PD capabilities and then a lot of other stuff. The F1C gets the Serrano 4, which I think the best way of describing this radar, temperamental is probably the way I would put it. It's definitely nowhere near as competent as many other radars that I've actually used in the game, and that, kind of makes me sad. But it's good enough. But is it good enough to rely at least half of your weaponry on this thing? So I understand that this thing has like ground stuff, like ground ordnance and things like that. That's not what this thing's designed for. Don't take it. Basically, what you want to do is you want to maximize using stuff like this, which is, of course, the actual missiles. So this vehicle gets access to 2 Magic 2s. These are the best missiles at this BR. If you're talking about IR stuff, it's an all-aspect IRCCM Magic. It's got an insane booster on it, insane overload. They're fantastic. A lot of the time, you actually have to pre-flare these to be able to stop them coming in. And even then, they don't stop. So they just keep coming and they don't stop coming. So yeah, these Magic 2s are incredibly good. Just insane. And then you have access to some other ones. You have the 530Fs, which are the standard semi-active radar homing ones. They have decent overload, decent range, and generally you can, do pretty good with them. The problem is, as I said, is the Serrano 4 and keeping the lock on it. Then also you have the standard 530, which you also can use, which is basically just a worse version than the 530F. You also have the E, but the E is the IR version of the 530. This one, once again, is more similar to the standard 530. It just has an IR seeker head on it, so it's usually better just to take the 530Fs because those are just the better versions. And then you can take the E on the central pylon if you want to, which is probably what I would recommend. So you can take the 530E, which is kind of like a setup IR missile. You can take the Magic 2s, which are your short range, can't get away from missiles, and then your 2 semi-active 530Fs as well, which are very good at dealing with enemies as well. So you have all of these great options. In terms of missiles, it's just if you can get the radar working alongside of them. Because if you can't, then you only have really access to 2 Magic 2s, which, once again, are very, very good. They're basically one-and-done missiles, but the other missiles you want to get going too. So if you can do that, you can have a great time in this thing. If you can't do that, then it ain't very good. So that's kind of the area where you're stuck in. So is it a good grinder? Yes, it has very good rewards. Yes, it's similar to a few of the vehicles in the standard tech trees, so you get a general idea of it. Is it at a great BR right now? Not particularly. But at the same time, it is also one which can be quite easy to play as long as you don't get frustrated with the goddamn radar, which is something that at least I do with a lot of these vehicles, especially after playing stuff like the J37, which has an amazing radar compared to it. So that's my thoughts. If you want like kind of an overall thing, I think the ground vehicles bundle is probably worth it. The air bundle is not, unless you really want the F1C, and the 2 returning G vehicles are not worth purchasing. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tullio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.